Welcome to the solar panel recycling webinar. My name is Abby. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a program manager with Solar Oregon. Also in the webinar today, we have Robin from Twende Solar. Robin, do you want to say hello really quick?
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Swanheiser. I'm the Executive Director of Twende Solar, also she, her pronouns. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you. In the webinar today, we're going to be going through how you can recycle your solar panels, what you need to know about the state of solar panel recycling here in Oregon. Now, first up like I said, on the agenda for today, we're going to be first walking through the current state of solar panel recycling, including some policy related to it. We'll then talk about how solar recycling works and the options you have as someone with solar panels to recycle your solar panels, and then how you can get prepared for when your solar panels reach the end of their life. If throughout the presentation you have any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. It's highlighted in orange. We'll be using the chat to provide links and resources. No need to wait until the end of the presentation to put any questions into that Q&A. You can put them in at any time, and we will be going through them all at the end. Now, a little bit about Solar Oregon. Solar Oregon is a 501c3 nonprofit that has existed in Oregon since 1979, and where we have been focusing on solar, advocating for solar power throughout the state through education, community, and advocacy. And then, Robin, do you want to talk a little bit about what Twende does?
Yeah, thank you. So Twende Solar is a nonprofit organization based in Portland, Oregon. We've been around since 2015. And what we do is we bridge the gap between communities that have a need for a reliable source of electricity with the equipment and resources to make that possible through solar. So we see solar as the way that we can deliver reliable education, opportunity, social progress to the communities where we work. And we work globally to address communities and prioritize local collaborations to create lasting and transformative impacts in those communities. And we work with those communities in a collaborative fashion. So we identify partners on the ground and work together to identify their electricity needs. And so far, we've worked in 9 different countries and helped to deliver electricity access to over 10,000 individuals globally.
Thank you, Robin. Twende does really great work, and I know I've been really grateful to get to work with them and collaborate on some of the projects in the Portland metro area and just to have them around at some of the local solar events. In addition to Solar Oregon and Twende, this presentation is also made possible by support from the Energy Trust of Oregon. Energy Trust of Oregon serves the 2.5 million people in the Pacific Northwest who are subscribers to Northwest Natural Gas, Avista, Pacific Power, or PGE. So thank you so much, Energy Trust of Oregon, for your continued support. So now, with further ado, let's discuss solar panel recycling. So solar has accounted for the majority of added grid capacity in the United States since 2019. You can see that indicated on the graph here, where solar was added grid capacity at about 35%, and natural gas was about 27.7. Even with the uncertainty that currently exists in the federal government, it is expected and predicted that solar will continue to be the majority of added grid capacity here in the US, just due to how easily deployable solar is. It's very quick and easy to get it set up as compared to natural gas, nuclear, or other renewable materials. As more solar is added, of course, more solar panels will also need to be decommissioned. Typically, solar panels have 25 years of warranty, but they can last for much longer than that. And so as all these panels get added to the grid, as our grid capacity continues to expand, we have to start thinking about how we will eventually dispose of these panels at the end of their life. So now with that, what is already being done in order to prepare for this future? There is no clear guidance on solar panel disposal, and depending on where you are in the United States, in some cases solar panels can be considered hazardous waste and need to be disposed of in specific ways due to that. Here in Oregon, we do not have any laws that specifically require solar panels to be disposed of a specific way. It is treated as electronic waste. However, some states surrounding us, including California and Washington, have passed laws that do regulate how solar panels are disposed. Washington Bill 5939 was passed in 2017 and was passed in 2015 and required that by July 1st of 2017, all manufacturers of solar panels to provide a public, convenient, environmentally sound way to recycle all modules purchased after July 1st, 2017. And then last year, this statute was extended again, so they have moved that deadline of July 1st, 2017 further up. But that is a policy that is currently going into effect, and as many solar installers work between both Oregon and Washington, it is expected that this policy will end up impacting Oregon's solar landscape as well. In California, California passed their policy a different way through the California Department of Toxic Substances, and they require that all universal waste handlers who meet certain amount threshold. So if they're processing a certain amount of waste, they must submit a report to the California Department of Toxic Substances about the number of panels they are processing and how they are doing so. So we are surrounded here in Oregon with two states that are trying to figure out how they will be processing all these solar panels in two different ways, with Washington putting it on the manufacturer and California putting it on the disposal side. So now, as I said, as solar continues to be installed, that also means that there's going to be more and more solar aging out of being useful. As solar ages, it has to eventually be decommissioned and replaced. Currently, solar panels being retired far outpace the amount of capacity recyclers have to process them. Roughly 9 million solar panels are retired each year, but recyclers overall throughout the United States only have capacity to process roughly 1 million. This means that the majority of panels being decommissioned right now end up in landfills and in the trash, and are not actually able to be recycled. And when it does come to recycling panels, there are some trade-offs in terms of the number of panels being processed, where it can be much more financially feasible to process a large number of panels from a utility project where there will be a high volume and everything will be the same size and features, compared to a residential or multiple residential projects where there will be just fewer panels overall, and there might be differences between what's on your house and what's on your neighbor's house, even if you got them in the same year. This can make recycling difficult overall, but it is in fact possible, and there are some local organizations that are working to increase solar panel recycling throughout the United States. So how does the solar panel actually get recycled? Recycling solar panels is an extremely resource and time-intensive process that really only produces a small amount of usable materials, which is why there is not a larger capacity for it overall. Hopefully, in the future, as we continue to develop new and better technologies, we'll be able to better process recycled solar panels. However, currently, what we get when we do recycle a solar panel are aluminum, glass, silicone, and small amounts of other metals, and all these materials can then be used in other projects and other building materials and just utilized however they need to be. So now, what do you need to know if you are thinking about your solar panel? So as I said earlier, solar panels typically have a 25-year warranty, but they can be operational for much longer. Pictured here on the right in the presentation, this is solar panels that were installed at the University of Applied Science and Arts of Southern Switzerland in 1982, and these solar panels are still functional and providing power to this university today. So even though your warranty might end after only 25 years, that doesn't mean that on that 25-year mark, you need to go and rip down your panels as fast as possible to replace them. Our first step wants to be keeping solar panels that are already on your roof for as long as possible, so that you can make sure you are getting your money's worth, and because then you can really ensure that you are not contributing to more unnecessary waste. When it does come to decommissioning your panels, it's important to get a professional to help you remove panels safely, as it involves going up on your roof and dealing with electrical wiring. Depending on who your solar installer or deinstaller is, they may or may not have a solar recycling facility in mind. However, there are options throughout Oregon, and you can advocate that you want your panels to be recycled and to not end up in a landfill when you are talking with potential solar recyclers. When it comes to deciding on how you want to remove your panels, Solar Oregon recommends, once again, working with an Energy Trust of Oregon trade ally contractor. These are contractors who have been rigorously qualified by Energy Trust of Oregon so that you can be assured you are getting quality work. And if you are replacing your older solar panels with new ones, they will also be able to offer you Energy Trust of Oregon solar plus storage incentives. So you can be sure that your contractors have been vetted and that you are working with the best. I'm going to put a link to the Energy Trust of Oregon solar bid tool in the chat. And if you have any questions or if you do need to find a solar contractor, I highly recommend checking out that link. So now, like I said, your solar contractor may or may not have a solar recycler they already work with. I know some solar installers here in Oregon who do go to some of these recycling facilities listed on the screen and some who don't. This means that you might need to be more active in advocating for what you want to happen to your solar panels once they're taken off your roof. There are two main recycling facilities here in Oregon. The first is Green Century Recycling, which is located in Hillsboro, Oregon. They charge 25 cents per pound for solar panel recycling, and the panels have to be aluminum frame panels. They are able to pick up for an extra fee, and there are no limits on a max or minimum number of panels that you can take to them. Far West Metals is in Tualatin, Oregon. They charge 10 cents per pound and will accept most standard aluminum frame panels and similarly have no limits on max or minimum number of panels. These are both great options. I was able to speak with them both on the phone and they were really well informed and were happy to answer my questions. And so one of the biggest things you can do as a consumer when it comes to decommissioning your panels is to have a plan and know you want to take your panels to one of these local recycling facilities in order and then advocate for that and make sure that is listed in your contract so that you can be sure you are not contributing to unnecessary waste. In some cases, very rarely, you might also be able to donate your panels. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about today is the opportunity to donate solar panels because as a nonprofit organization here in Oregon that installs solar for communities, both domestically and internationally, we got to get a lot of inquiries into people who would like to donate their old solar panels that may be coming off of the roof or being replaced. And what we have to tell potential donors is that there's only select cases in which that is the best option. I have a picture here on the slide, which is you can see kind of two little tiny homes with people on the roof installing solar, and that is from a project that we did in Portland for a community called Dignity Village, which is a community that serves people experiencing homelessness in the Portland metro area. And then in this case, we were actually able to deploy a large number of used solar panels that were donated to us by homeowners, by manufacturers. In fact, we were actually, there's over 200 modules for a 60 kilowatt system using 10 different module manufacturers over the 36 tiny homes and ranging from anywhere from like 190 to 360 watts. So it was a very Mod Podge collection of modules, but we were able to pull together a lot of donations from locals who had lightly used modules. But in the case of our international projects, we find that if we are going to be shipping, a large quantity of modules to a pretty remote location, like where some of our projects are located in Ethiopia or a rural area in the mountains of Peru, we want to make sure that we are sending the best quality equipment to those communities so that those modules are going to last for the life expectancy of 25 years some modules have. And so in those cases, we generally have a pretty strict policy on not sending used equipment. And if we are, it's got to be less than 2 years old in a very good condition. And generally, if you're reaching the end of a module's lifespan and you're looking to recycle your modules, they may be at a place where they're not functioning as well as they used to. They could have cracks or or squirrel damage to the wiring. And so in those cases, we point people towards the option of recycling, which ultimately is the best place for you to ensure that your modules are not going into a landfill and are being appropriately handled by professionals who know how to strip down the modules to their sort of original components. So ultimately, it is possible to find organizations that like Twende Solar or others that will use these modules in projects domestically, but it is far more sustainable, and at least for the amount of modules that we can process, we are often not the best case. Especially, I think there's a question about utility scale. Depending on how large the system is, bringing in that number of modules, testing them to ensure that they still function appropriately, and then redeploying them is a large is quite challenging, and often, depending where they're located and where the nonprofit is located, can take a lot of resources that as a small nonprofit we just don't have. So my last point here is, when in doubt, recycle, because that is definitely the best way that you can ensure your solar panels are not ending up in a landfill. So, and if anyone has any questions, we'll have some time to answer that in the chat in a minute.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robin. Yes, like Robin said, I think we have one or two more slides, then we'll be going through the
Yeah.
Q&A.
Oh, and
And
I see one question that was just related to something I said there.
yeah, shoot.
So the someone asked why there's only a 2-year age limit as opposed to 20 years, and that's because 2 years is the limit of the age of the donation that we would accept because it is still in good condition. If the module is in 20-year condition, it is destined for recycling. We would not install a solar panel that is 20 years old for a community where we want to make sure that if we are installing electricity access to a community that has none, we want it to last for as long as possible so that we're not incurring extra costs on that community when they need to replace or fix damage. So 2 years is just our policy as a nonprofit. That is not any policy of any recycler, and more for our acceptance of donations. So just to clarify that.
That totally makes sense. We want to make sure that we are providing good resources and not creating another burden for people that we are trying to help. So now with all this information, what can you do? So you can first off, you can use your solar panels for as long as possible. Even if your warranty expires at 25 years, as I showed earlier, your solar panels can still be functional and saving you money for much longer. Leave your solar panels up on your roof for as long as you can to help you have lower your electric bill, and even if they have a lower efficiency rate, your panels will still be earning you those net metering credits and helping you save money. The first R of the 3 R's is reduce. So reduce your energy consumption and reduce your waste by keeping your solar panels for as long as you can. When it does come time to dispose of your solar panels, it's very important that you have a plan. Like disaster preparedness, it's going to be a lot easier to have your decommissioned solar panels be sent to a local recycling facility instead of the dump if you know your local solar panel recycling facilities and what the policies around that are in your area. So plan ahead of time, and when preparing to decommission your panels, talk with the contractors you're interviewing and speaking with about how you would like them to be disposed of, and be sure to advocate for what you want. And lastly, over the next 25 to 50 years, as we continue to deploy more solar is also going to have to be decommissioned and come off of roofs and be disposed of. So be sure that you are staying involved with initiatives, programs, and regulations, and advocate for policy that provides for more capacity for solar panel recycling so that we can continue to divert solar panels from the landfill. So now with all that information, I'm going to go through the chat and see what questions we have. I know we already have some. So we got a question asking, what are the options for recycling the inverters used in home solar systems when the inverter either are no longer needed, or they have reached the end of their useful life? So when inverters are at the end of their useful life, they're treated like your standard electronic waste, and it should, and I believe that most facilities that will accept things like old computers or iPhones, iPads, anything like that will also accept inverters and electric panels to again be stripped down to their more baseline components and reused.
Yeah, I see there was also a question there about like
Mhm.
why we do not use old modules, even if they are still in working order. Particularly in our case, Twende Solar is an extremely small nonprofit, so the resources that it takes to actually pay to transport them to a facility, pay to keep them in a facility, and the those we just don't have the resources to do that. So we never, when it's possible, we look for donations of modules. We will always try to use modules if they are available to us when we are working on a project. But we'll have people call us from across the country and say we have a megawatt of modules in Vermont, and it's going to cost $5,000 to get them to Portland. And we just don't have the resources or capacity to deal with modules at that capacity, or deploy them fast enough, then they would be used effectively. So when we're working with communities, we want to make sure that we are deploying the best quality so that they last the longest. And we're always trying to partner with companies who are willing to give us last year's stock or inventory excess. So we're never actually buying modules at full price. So that's just a little bit more context.
I would also, and Robin, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but I know there's been more push in education lately around being aware about what you're donating and not donating clothing that has rips and holes to Goodwill or to shelters, as those folks don't actually want those items and it just becomes more work for them to process. And I imagine it'd be similar when it comes to solar panels of we want to be sure we are donating quality materials without just providing more work for them to go through and providing more issues in the long run.
Yeah, and for a small nonprofit, we just don't have the resources to be paying like to house that many modules and redeploy them. On an average year, we're doing 2 to 3 projects, and it's each of our projects are only 8 to 25 kilowatts on average. So someone offers us a megawatt, that's more than we're probably going to install in our lifetime as a nonprofit. So it's
We also, someone was curious how many people are at the webinar today, and we have 9 participants. As always, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent out to everyone who registered as well. So even if people were unable to join live, everyone who registered for the webinar will be getting a recording in order to see the information that was covered, and they will have the opportunity to reach out to Robin and I via email as well if there's other questions that they have from just the recording. Someone, see, are there any other questions?
I've seen some other really creative ways that people are using solar panels, um, is that there's a lot of creative ways people are trying to use them in public works. So I had seen some people who are using them to create, public benches or sort of public works of art or sort of roofing for community patios in local garden spaces. So there's sort of some like more creative ways that people are choosing to upcycle solar panels in sort of in a beautiful way. Which doesn't necessarily, continue to use them for their effective, purpose of producing solar energy, but still uses the components for something that's more beautiful, and supports the community in some way rather than again ending up in a landfill.
I know some solar enthusiasts who full on have solar panels just hanging on their wall like a tapestry, because they really love the way they look and think it makes a really cool piece of art. And I have to say, it can be pretty cool to see it that way as well. Um, But yeah, I also know that sometimes occasionally schools can be interested in solar panels. Again, it can be kind of thing of they don't need every single person who's decommissioning solar panels to give them every single one. They only need one or two, but they can do some projects around solar panels and learning about renewable energy and just engage kids with very hands-on materials that way as well, which can be really good.
Are there any other questions here in the chat or comments, I guess, on their experience if you've ever tried to recycle a system? But it's we'd love to hear from you. I know that
Mhm.
Abby just put some and her email in the chat, but you're also welcome to email me at Twende Solar as well. We'll have that in the follow-up
Yes.
notes.
I'll put my email into the chat right now. And then, Robin, do you want to also put yours in? And then if there's any questions or comments, you're welcome to reach out to us there.
Sounds good. I'll do that right now. Oops, I have a typo there. Sorry.
Well, if there's no other questions, thank you everyone for coming today. The recording of this webinar will be emailed out to all of you as you all registered through the Eventbrite. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Robin or I. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.